Storm Ending by Jean Toomer. Thunder blossoms gorgeously above our heads, great hollow bell-like flowers, rumbling in the wind, stretching clappers to strike our ears, full-lipped flowers bitten by the sun, bleeding rain, dripping rain like golden honey, and the sweet earth flying from the thunder. So after having read this cold, I would like to walk you through a very brief analysis. So I probably won't touch on everything, but I think everything that I will touch on will be in the homework for today. So listen carefully. So one of the first things I'd like to cover is that there is no rhyme scheme here. You may have noticed that most students maybe don't enjoy poetry that doesn't rhyme. However, I just want to point out that when a poem doesn't rhyme, it is called free verse, as you'll see in the top right-hand corner. This poem does make use of figurative language. It has an extended metaphor. Sometimes we can call that a conceit, but it does make use of a metaphor, and we'll talk more about what is the storm, or what metaphor is being used for the thunderstorm. Okay. Personification is also used, and simile is also used. In addition to figurative language, this poem uses a lot of imagery. And when I say imagery, you should immediately be thinking senses. So your taste, touch, smell, sight, and sound. Okay, so poets will try to tap into those senses when he or she is trying to channel something that they're feeling, right? And so you can kind of work backwards and you can pick those sensory details out, okay, in order to analyze the meaning of a poem. And then finally, diction, okay, which I am going to circle in red. So let's just look at this first line. Thunder blossoms gorgeously above our heads, okay? The first thing I want to point out is that thunder doesn't actually blossom. So this is not literal, okay? It's a metaphor. We're comparing thunder to a flower blossoming. All right, what's also of interest is that we're calling this gorgeous, okay? Most people maybe wouldn't describe an oncoming thunderstorm as gorgeous, and so this word stands out, and the diction or choice of words would help us to understand more about the poet's maybe tone, okay? And I want you to keep that in mind. So whenever you're looking at diction, the first thing you should be thinking is positive or negative, and this is probably a positive word, I would imagine, okay? So let's move on to line 2. Great hollow bell-like flowers. Okay, so we're continuing with the metaphor here. Again, this is an extended metaphor. We're talking about the flowers blossoming. And the great hollow bell-like flowers in this particular line, I think, mean clouds. Okay, so this is something that we can see, and that's sensory detail. Okay, that's imagery. Rumbling in the wind is something that we can hear, right? And so there's more imagery being used in line 3. Rumbling in the wind, I'd imagine that to be the thunder, right? You have all probably experienced a thunderstorm before. What do you imagine stretching clappers to strike our ears might be? So what strikes our ears is the crack of thunder, right? Or the strike of lightning. Again, continuing with the description of the thunderstorm. Okay, so now we get into line 5 where the flowers are described as full-lipped. Okay, we're not talking about literal flowers here. Again, extended metaphor. So we're looking at the sky. I think full-lipped flowers bitten by the sun might be clouds that the sun is breaking through or biting through. Okay, the word bitten, I've put it in a box here because that is also figurative language, right? So this is all figurative language. The clouds can't actually be bitten, nor can flowers. So this would be personification. Okay, the next line is very interesting, and I would like to leave this one a little bit open for interpretation, but clearly the word bleeding is diction that is of interest to us. Okay, so the clouds are now bleeding rain. So the connotation of the word, it makes me immediately think of like death. However, blood is also nourishment, it's life. So we can think of the clouds as giving life to the land. Um, the skies are opening up and it's pouring out, like in this instance, blood. Okay, so very interesting, but you can keep that one up to interpretation. Okay, we're going to continue here. It's dripping rain like golden honey. All right, maybe the sun is peeking through those clouds. It's a kind of like a sun shower, perhaps. And so this is not only appealing to our sight, right, but you can also taste honey, right? Golden honey. This would also be a simile. Okay. And then the final line I think is pretty powerful. It starts with a conjunction, so it's continuing. It's actually interrupting. So this is what we call an M dash here, right? And usually that's to indicate that something is abruptly being said or interrupted. And so it says, and the sweet earth flying from the thunder. So this is interesting. The sweet earth, who walks on earth? I imagine humans or animals, right? What do they typically do when we hear thunder? We hear a thunderstorm coming, we fly from the earth. Okay, everything seems to run away from thunder, which is pretty interesting. I think that the speaker of the poem here does not find um, the thunder to be threatening, but instead seems to be contemplating how gorgeous such a sun shower or thunderstorm could be. Perhaps it's the beginning of life in some respect, right? Because we're bleeding rain, dripping like golden honey, right? This seems to have like the after effect is more positive. Okay. And so there's a very, very brief analysis of Jean Toomer's Storm Ending.